What's the creepiest true story you've experienced? Story 1. I come from a small city in Australia. About 20 years ago, a girl went missing, Rihanna Barrow, and the case has never been solved. Sadly, I think it's been long forgotten. But at the time, it was a major news story. Anyway, about a month after her disappearance, myself and a friend were walking through a park around the area she vanished from. We were about 11 at the time. We step out onto this street and see this boy around 7 years old hurrying down the street. A car is following him, slowly about 10 meters behind him. We thought it looked strange, and my friend, being a bit more switched on than me, called to the kid pretending to be a friend, and he ran over. The car stops in the middle of the street. We could not see who was in it, but there were 2 men in the car. After a long standoff, my heart pounding away in my chest, as we could all sense something was wrong, the car slowly pulls away and heads off down another street, and one of them waved out the window at us. The kid said it had followed him from the corner store, a few blocks away. My biggest regret was after walking with this kid back to his house, which was only a few streets away, we sort of decided not to tell anyone. And I do not know why story 2. When I lived in Jefferson Park in Chicago, I would take the Blue Line home from work at night and cut through the park on my way back to my apartment. One night after I had just got off an 11-hour shift, I was walking through the park like usual towards Lawrence Avenue. Usually I am the only one there, or there is another commuter walking home with me. This time, as I am walking through alone, this guy walks out of the shadows next to this community center in the park and is now waking about 15 meters behind me. No big deal. I figured he had just gone to piss in the bushes, which I had done on many an occasion after a night of drinking. So I am walking along, and I realize this guy is now about 5 meters behind me, but he is not trying to pass me. He is matching my pace. At this point, I am on Lawrence, and I am still thinking he is probably just walking home too. I go to cross the street a couple blocks away, and when I turn to see if there is a car coming, I see he is even closer to me, like really close. Weird. He crosses with me, and he starts walking faster to keep up as I speed up my pace. Now this is really weird. I cross the street again at a random part of the street to see if he follows. He does. I cross the street again. He follows again. He is definitely following me. So as I am nearing my apartment, I am realizing I do not want this guy to know where I live. So I stop, pull out my knife, and turn around. We make eye contact for what felt like 5 minutes, but was probably only like 25 seconds. Neither of us says a word. He does not look scared, but he looks surprised. I turn back around and keep walking. He turns left at the very next intersection. To this day, I do not know if I saved myself from a mugging by showing this guy I was ready for a fight, or if I just scared the shit out of some poor bastard just trying to get home too. Better safe than sorry, I guess. Story 3. Back when I was in the Army, we ran into something pretty unexplainable during a regular navigation exercise, so navigation exercises are pretty standard throughout the world. Given a map and some coordinates, you have to find checkpoints using a compass. Of course, each squad was given a signal set to use in case of emergencies, or just to add to the weight they had to lug around. It is part of their kit anyway. There is a GPS embedded inside, but it is old school and gives coordinates only. Close to the end of the exercise, a squad had fallen hopelessly behind, but they were on their way to the last checkpoint. So I was in charge of the last checkpoint with another fellow instructor. We knew they were around us in a 1-kilometer radius, could not spot them due to foliage. We waited and waited for about 1 to 2 hours. You do not mess up so frigging bad that you cannot figure out a checkpoint that is 1 kilometer away. We radioed them and did not get a reply till 1/2 hour after the initial call. They were frantic. Seems like they were walking around in circles and seeing similar landmarks. It was apparently pitch dark at where they were, and this was around 6 p.m. where the sun was only starting to set. Me and the other trainer told them not to move, and we hiked to their position using an electronic GPS. And at the coordinates given, we found no one. The forest was also eerily quiet. No insects, no birds, just dead silence. It was pretty unnerving. The radio set was silent. Not even static was coming out. We radioed them again, and they said they were at the same coordinates as us, but I saw no one. We decided to hike back to the checkpoint and wait. We gave them the coordinates to the checkpoint. About an hour later, they emerged. Took them 4 hours plus to find a checkpoint like 1 kilometer away. During final briefing, one of them told me they seemed to walk around in circles. They kept leaving marks on trees using a blade, but when they came back to what should have been the tree that they marked, the mark was gone. They also felt like they were being followed, but should just be the forest in exhaustion playing tricks on them, right? Story 4. Many moons ago, I was an editor, was cutting a commercial late at night and deadline required I stay overnight to finish. I am on the second floor of a 30-story building. Half the floor is editing suites and the rest is rented out to various businesses like designers, developers, mostly tech companies, except for one office, which was the largest on the floor, about 600 square feet, and belonged to a psychiatrist. It is about 3 a.m., and I am super focused on my work. Suddenly realize I am starving. Deli across the street from me is 24/7, so I decide to get some food. All the offices have sliding frosted glass doors. I open mine and realize the floor is completely empty and dark. Save for the emergency exit lights, it is dead and dark. I get my food and come back, close the door and watch some YouTube while I eat. Suddenly, I hear the elevator bing down the hallway. I knew that the entire building except for the 19th floor was empty. 19th floor was some French company. There was not even anyone at the front desk. You had to swipe in with a key card at 2 doors in the lobby. I slowly slide the door quietly and stick my head out of the office. Nothing. I see the light from inside the elevator, casting a light onto the floor. But I could not see in because the way the hallway was set up. Eventually, I lock the office door, put my giant headphones on, and get back to work. At some point, I must have fallen asleep because around 5:30, a loud knocking on the glass wakes me up. I jump up, open the door, and see one of the building managers and a cop. I walk out into the hallway and hear a commotion and see more cops. They ask me what I am doing here, so I explain. They ask if I saw or heard anything, and I say no because headphones and fell asleep and so on. Cops walks away towards the other cops. I ask the manager what is going on, and she tells me that someone broke into the building, somehow bypassing the 2 doors downstairs that required a key card, broke into the psychiatrist's office, and stole files on 3 patients according to what the doctor told her and the cops. I was there that whole time, either working or asleep, and did not hear anything. When she told me this, I almost crapped myself. I mean, to go after 3 specific files takes some serious dedication to your mission. All I could think about was, since it was not some petty robbery, and there are tech offices all over the floor, I kept thinking, what might have happened to me had I run into them? I ended up leaving that place several months later. Story 5. Background: I work in a solicitor's. I am a secretary. I work in a solicitor's office, and the receptionist was out sick this one day, and I had to cover for her for the day. The reception is at the very front of the building and kind of cut off from everything else. You have to walk through at least 2 doors and down a hallway to get to anyone else in the building. Because we were short-staffed, I was completely on my own out there. Usually not a big deal. Anyway, this bloke comes in. Quite tall, 6 foot plus. He is wearing old clothes and a baggy hoodie with the hood up. He has his hands in his pocket and is acting all shift and paranoid. I go through the usual, "Hi, can I help you?" blah blah. He is still acting weird, like looking around himself and not looking me directly in the eye. I really was not prepared for his answer. "Do you deal with armed robberies?" My heart literally stopped for a second. I did not know what the hell to say to this guy, and there was no one close by that could help if anything happened. No one would even hear me if I shouted. This guy did not explain himself either. He just asked me that question and let it sit there between us. After the pause, I realized he was not going to say anything else. So with all the bravery I could muster, I asked, "Are you the armed robber?" and gestured to his hands in his pockets. He changed in a second. He obviously realized how he was coming across and did not want to frighten me. He took his hands out of his pockets and pulled his hood down so I could see his face and was just repeating, "No, no, love." "I am so sorry," he explained then, that he was the one that was robbed and wanted to take legal action, of course. By the end of the encounter, we were laughing about it. But for a good 5 seconds, I thought, "Ash, this is it. He is not going to be happy with the 30 pounds in petty cash and just shoot me." Story 6. My friend passed away at 19 from an overdose. This was over 10 years ago. We all went to the funeral and burial and helped his girlfriend move out of the house and back into her parents'. 2 months later, I was hanging out with my friend. It was late at night, which was normal teenage behavior. We just sitting in his car outside his house when his phone rang. He just gave it to me and I looked at it in disbelief. Our deceased friend was calling, or someone that had his number now. I flipped it open and put it on speaker and said hello. No answer, just clicking, and the call ended. I looked at my friend like WTF, and he said it had been happening the past few days, and he did not think anyone would believe him. This death hit home for all of us, but more so for him since his sister was going to marry the guy, and they got along really well. I called the number back. It was disconnected. It happened a few weeks later, then stopped altogether. Story 7. There was a lady, my friend's half-sister's mom, if that makes any sense, who would cut my hair at my house. She had a boyfriend who I had met once, very briefly. About a year after meeting him, she came over to cut my hair, but this time, she unexpectedly brought her boyfriend along with her. I had not seen her in a while, and it seemed like something was different, and he was acting very odd. She went to the bathroom, and he began proposing that we hang out sometime, but she cannot know. I am serious, I said sure, just to get him off my back. I honestly thought they were on substances, and I was just trying to keep everything peaceful and get them out of there as soon as possible. As they were finally leaving, he is behind her, and he goes to wave goodbye and throws a note on the ground that said, "Call me, it is our secret promise," with his phone number on it. I did not call. 2 days later, I kept getting missed calls from a number I did not recognize. I never answered them. Then eventually I got a text message saying, "Hey, it is Ray, his name. Can you please call me? I really need your help with something." I did not respond. He kept texting me, saying he needed a favor. Since I never gave him my phone number to begin with, and since this man knows where I live, I was pretty alarmed. I tried to go to the police station to see if there was anything I could do, but the station I went to was not open to the public. That was the only station I knew of. I could have looked up another one, but I kind of felt stupid for being there in the first place. So I just went home. The next morning at 8 a.m., I wake up to very loud banging on my door. I could not see anyone out the window, and I do not have a peephole, so I opened the door a little bit. I thought it could have been my parents since I live right by them. But no. It was Ray. He was pressed up against the door, which is why I could not see him out the window. He was smiling, and I quickly shut the door on him and called 911. He left before the cops showed up and sent a text message to the effect of, "I do not want to inconvenience you. Sorry to bug you." The cop told me to text him back saying, "Do not contact me in any way, shape, or form, or I will go to the police again," and made me take a picture of the cop car in front of my house and send that too. Then he left saying, "It is not illegal for someone to like you." Well, the next day I got another missed call from Ray's number, so I went to a different police station. The usual front desk person was sick, and the man filling in for her was a cop. He seemed like he actually wanted to help me, and after a quick type in of Ray's phone number to his computer, he had me come around to identify his mugshot. It turns out Ray is a level 3S offender, a child rapist to be exact. He was not even allowed in my state. The cop said that was just the beginning of it, but was not allowed to further discuss his charges. Though he did mention that I was Ray's type. I was 23 at the time, but looked 15, 16. Ray was 38, so I had to take screenshots of every missed call and every text message, take pictures of the note, put the note in a baggie and bring it to the police. I Googled his name and found some articles about him being a offender. I printed them out along with my screenshots and took them to the courthouse to file a stalking order. It should have just been a harassment order, but the lady there told me to put stalking so I would not have to pay the $85 fee. Eventually, the cops found him a few days later, arrested him, and served him his papers. We had a court date which he did not show up to, and I was given a 10-year protection order. Last I heard, he was released from jail but went back for burglary. Story 8. One night, my sister and brother-in-law went on a cruise. It was summertime and a weeknight, so the streets were a little dead. We were out for about 2 hours before heading across the city to go home. We end up behind this green Subaru. He is driving like he is drunk, so we call the driving while intoxicated hotline to report him, because his driving is getting scary. We hang up with the operator, and just as we do, he swerves onto a side residential street. We call back the hotline and inform them what street he took, hang up and take a sigh of relief, as he is not on the road with us any longer. We are just about to pass the river and 3 miles from home when he comes swerving out of a side street. My sister steps on the gas to pass him as I fumble for the phone to call back the hotline. I tell the operator we called earlier, and this guy again appeared out of nowhere and is driving like a maniac. We are heading in a different direction than we started out on and on a totally different street. The operator accuses us of following him, and I tell her that we are not. I look at my sister, who is absolutely terrified, and I take a look at the driver of the car, and he looks unreal, and I let out a little scream, and the operator asks what is wrong. This guy is aggressively staying with us, gripping his steering wheel, glaring at us with these crazy eyes so big and so round, like they are about to fall out of his skull. He looks so angry, and he is not even keeping an eye on where he is going. He is so angry at us, and I tell the operator that he is chasing us, and she said cops are on the way. I mean, I felt my blood go cold. This guy's face just looked insane. I am assuming he was mad that we got in his way. Dude was livid. He almost did not even look human. I kept saying, oh my God, he is scary. As he got super close to our car, I thought he was going to ram us. Then he swerved onto another street and out of view. The operator hung up after I told her what street he was on. My sister and I almost peed our pants. We were so terrified. The cops zoomed by us minutes later, passing the street he turned onto. I will never forget that face. I seriously thought that guy was going to kill us. Story 9. I went to a cemetery with a friend of mine that was reportedly the most haunted cemetery in Connecticut to just walk around for a bit for SHS and giggles. I will spoil it already that nothing supernatural occurred while we were there. Anyway, while she and I are walking around, a motorcycle pulls up, and a man gets off and begins walking around the cemetery as well. It is a small plot of land. There is literally nowhere that my friend and I can, where this guy cannot see us. So we politely give a little wave and go back to reading headstones. This guy took the wave as an invitation to come talk to us, and he begins telling us how he rides his motorcycle all over, looking for old cemeteries to check out. Seems like a bit of an odd hobby, but hey, to each their own. We get out of the conversation and go to check out a few more headstones, which put our backs to this dude, when a few minutes later, we notice he has not moved from where he was standing while we were talking. He has his phone in his hand, aimed at us, and we both hear the unmistakable sound of a camera shutter. He fumbles with his phone for a minute and turns around from us, acting like he was taking pictures of headstones. We knew he had our picture on his phone. She and I looked at each other, gave a non-verbal let's get the F out of here, and went to my car to drive away. As we get in the car, we noticed that the guy had followed us out of the cemetery and was now sitting on his motorcycle, very obviously filming us with his camera. While I drove away, my friend watched the mirrors and told me that he never once put the phone down as long as the car was within sight. I hope I never see that creep again in my life. Story 10. Just now it was about 11 p.m., and I was in my garage returning a missed call from my cousin. He did not answer, so I just sat on the top of the stairs to the mezzanine and finished my cigarette. As I am about to put my smoke out and go back inside the house, I hear some snuffling and crunching sounds like something big is eating snow from just around the corner of the open garage door. It is 8 degrees Fahrenheit and there is around 3 feet of snow on the ground, and my house is in the mountains, several miles out of town, by the way. My first thought was, oh, boo-boo, my pit bull must have gotten out somehow. I walk inside and hear his old boo-boo snoozing on her dog bed in the laundry room. Now I am puzzled. I casually grab my .45 ACP and a bright light, wake the dog up, and bring her outside to investigate. I tell the dog go find it, and she takes off. I walk around the garage, down the driveway, and back up to the back porch and find nothing except my 95-pound pit bull cowering by the door. No tracks in the snow, no sign of anything, except a half-eaten deer hide on the hood of my truck in the garage. It was not there when I walked by 5 minutes prior. I am perfectly sane and sober. What the F just happened? Update, so I went back out this morning and had a look around. There were very large and very faint mountain lion tracks in my driveway, on the hard-packed tire tracks in the snow that lead into the garage. The lion entered the garage through the open stall door and exited through the man door up the stairs, meaning we were very likely both in the garage at the same time. The upper-level mezzanine has a short partition wall along a walkway that leads to a storage room. I found more very fresh deer parts around the corner at the end of the walkway in front of the storage room door. The lion exited the garage onto my back deck and jumped on the roof of the house, probably when I was walking around the outside of the garage looking for tracks. He wandered off into the woods immediately behind the house. There are plenty of deer around for him to eat, so I'm not worried. Definitely going to keep a close eye on my dog, though. Especially if she goes out at night, I will go with her. Mountain lions have huge territories, so I am sure it has moved on. Story 11. When I was in my early 20s, I was living in my parents' house at the time, and my ex had spent the night with me. I woke up in the morning facing away from her, blinked my eyes a few times, did not make a sound because I thought maybe I could go back to sleep for a bit, when I heard "I love you" in this sleepy hush voice clear as day. So I say back in a normal voice, "I love you too." All of a sudden, my ex says in this panicked voice, that was not me. There was no one else in the house at the time and no gadgets that could have caused it, and my ex certainly was not screwing with me, as she had no sense of humor. We were both weirded out by the whole thing. It was as clear as day, and we both heard it. About 2 weeks later, I was alone, when one of the lamps in my room turned on. I just figured it was an old lamp, probably bad wiring. About a day later again, I go to bed alone, turn off the lights, and I get in bed, and I am filled with this immediate sense of dread. I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched, and not in a just-looking manner, but in a menacing manner. I fought through it and finally fell asleep. I woke up about 2 hours later, still feeling the same way. Except when I woke up, I just kept thinking to myself about the lamp. Please do not turn on. Please do not turn on. Of course, boom, the lamp turns on. I probably laid in that bed for 15 minutes frozen before I got the courage to get up and turn off the lamp and attempt to sleep again. After that, nothing happened anymore that I at least noticed. This all happened in December, and my parents had been saying for years a lot of weird things happened in my parents' house around my grandmother's birthday, but I dismissed it all until this all happened. But again, after all this, I personally never experienced anything, but my parents still claim to. Story 12. When I was 16, I was in a summer work exchange in Quebec, Canada. One night, I invited a friend from the program to stay over at my billet host family's home for the night. We slept downstairs in the basement, as they had a couch and a spare mattress down there. The actual event is quite fuzzy, but I remember waking up, sensing something was wrong. I looked up, and there was a shadowy figure person standing above me, and the figure grabbed my breast. I did not know how to react in my brain fog, and it seems the figure went back upstairs and out the front door. I laid there for a moment in the darkness and noted the stuffed animal I slept with. I was young, and it was from the boyfriend at the time, was several feet away from the head of the mattress. Once I was slightly more coherent, I began to shake and knew I had to let the host parents know. I went up the stairs to the main floor and noticed the front door was wide open, with the sun just rising. This is when I realized that something phi had happened. I hurried up to the top floor to where the bedrooms were and whipped on the light of the parents' room. I tried to explain that someone had been in the house and grabbed me, but keep in mind, I was a 16-year-old kid in a huge panic. My many years of French immersion in school did not teach me the French words for boob or home invasion. The host mother seemed pretty pissed that I had woken them up. It took a lot of broken French and hand gestures to get the point across. They did contact the local police, and they sent an Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer over, who thankfully spoke English. Nothing ever did come from it, and my friend who had slept through the entire thing. Almost 15 years later, and it still sticks with me. Story 13. My mom had a stalker when I was young. My parents were divorced, and we lived alone right next to the woods in a small neighborhood. I always remember my mom being pretty strict with making sure I had my windows locked and curtains drawn when I went to bed, and I never understood until years later. For a year or so, someone assuming a guy would come to our house and look in our windows. She told me a story during Christmas. We were sitting around the fireplace, and she looked out the window and saw a guy's face with his hands cupped around, just staring right in the window. She freaked and called the cops. Dude bails. Another time she woke up to knocking on her window and this guy asking to be let in. She freaks out again, calls the neighbors who knew about it. They run over, call the cops. Nothing to be found. Well, it snowed that night after this all happened, and in the morning there were tracks leading back to my mom's window. They tracked the footprints back to a hunter stand in the woods by our house. That was where he would hide, apparently. The last time my mom heard from him, we got home from schoolwork one day, and there was a manila envelope on our porch. It was a news story about a woman who was raped and murdered. Here is the kicker. The woman in the story had my mom's same name. We moved pretty quick after that. Story 14. This will prob get beautied, but here goes. I was buying my first house and could not find anything I loved. My real estate agent told me about a place that he was told about. He was asked to represent the seller that would be put up on the market the next day. My mom and I decided to drive by the place to see if we want to schedule an appointment. For the backstory, the house was being listed as the current owner was going into a retirement home, so the place was empty. We pull in the long driveway and park. The house is adorable, set back of the road, kinda in the woods on a super private lot. We get out to start exploring outside and a van pulls in the driveway, blocking us in. An older guy, mid-40s, 50s, gets out and tells us it is his mom's place, asks if we want a tour. We do, of course, not even thinking, and he lets us in. We do the normal walk about, then he asks if we want to see the basement. The basement was more of a concrete cellar, and to get into it, you had to go outside and enter through a separate wooden door. My mom and I go down, and the creepy guy follows behind us and closes the wooden door behind him, essentially blocking our only way out. For those of you that have never entered a cellar, you leave the door open until you are done. He was chatty, friendly-ish up until that point, but suddenly he was super quiet and seemed distracted and was giving me 100% murderer vibes. My mom was feeling awkward too, chatting too much, asking too many questions, basically filling the dead silence. Anyways, I noped out of there pretty quick because I was feeling super uncomfortable and basically pushed past the creepy guy. He was a shorter, thin guy, but thin can be wiry, and walked back to the car, talking about how we will come back to do an official walkthrough with the real estate agent. Blah, blah. Got out of there fine, but mentioned creepy guy to the real estate agent the next day. His eyes bulged out of his head because he said the creepy guy had come into the office trying to find an agent the day before and asked for a woman. The female agent said he made her feel uncomfortable and creepy, and she declined to represent him because she did not want to end up in a body bag. Story 15. I had an experience that was similar to a scene in the start of Get Out. I was walking down the street at about 10 p.m. or so when I heard that a car coming from behind me had slowed down, but not turned off to another street and was just lingering there. I kept walking, not assuming the worst but staying vigilant. The car eventually passed me and turned left at the next street where I lost sight of it, but I knew it had immediately stopped because I saw the light from the brakes. At this point, I am thinking it is sketchy, but I do not think I am in danger unless a gun is involved, because there are still a decent amount of cars passing by and busier intersection nearby I could run to if I really had to. I also want to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I just kept walking, because maybe the person lived there, or was going to a friend's house or something. When I got to the street the car turned at, it was turned back around facing out at me still running. That is when I said nope and just turned around and walked the other way. The car followed me again and was a little bit behind me when I turned and looked at the driver, who was some scraggly, creepy-looking guy. I just stopped, looked at him, put my arms out and said, "What is up?" and he drove away. Story 16. One day back when I was in high school, I was home alone. It was afternoon, still bright out, so generally not creepy, and my parents had not come home from work yet. I had a desk adjacent to my bed, with both the desk and the headboard right up against the wall. I would often turn my laptop to the side of the table so I could browse while sitting perched on the side of my bed. So basically, me sitting with the laptop in front of me and directly to my right was my headboard wall. That day I was on Skype with my friend, sitting the way I always do. We were talking and she stopped me and said, "I thought you were home alone." I knew for sure no one was home. So I say, "Yeah, I am," and she says, "I think your brother is home. He just walked past behind you into the other room." I froze. I knew for sure I was home alone. I do have a brother, but he did not live with us at the time, and had in fact never lived in that house with us. He left for college before we moved there. This friend had never made a joke like that and seemed completely serious and nonchalant. I was about ready to cry, asking, "You mean someone went this way," motioning to my right, to which she said yes. I turned my laptop to the side so she could see that there was no other room hallway to my right. As you might remember, there was a wall right there. And now I am in my bed like 10 years later and scared again. Story 17. My creepiest, scariest moment I had ever experienced has got to be when I was 8 years old. I was living in a small neighborhood which branched off from a long road leading to the highway. I had recently moved to this new house, and I had a friend from where I used to live visiting me. One morning we had woken up to nobody being home. My family had all left to go food shopping. Anyways, we were just laying in bed playing Pokemon Pearl and Diamond with some music playing on my television. We were about to have a battle when all of a sudden my door flies open. Standing there is an older white man, probably around 50-55, skinny as hell. Thinking about it now, I'm pretty sure he may have been cracked out or something. I froze. I was too terrified to do anything. He stared into my eyes for a good 3 seconds, almost as if he was deciding what to do about us ruining his burglary. Then he dipped. He hauled ass down my hallway and out my front door. I then chased him out, where I saw him pedaling as hard as he can down the long road on a little kid's bike. After I called my parents and the cops came, it was revealed that all he really stole was some cheap jewelry and some money from my parents' room, but tore our house up badly. I do not think we ever heard from the cops again about this man, but he had me shotting myself. Story 18. One night, while going ding-dong ditching with my friends, we came on a house with a light still on in the window. We looked into the window and saw a guy inside watching adult content. My friend thought it would be funny for someone to pound as hard as they could on the window. This is about the stupidest thing you can possibly do given where we were rural United States, as everyone and their grandmother has 10 guns. Anyways, my friends had been doing all the other doorbells, so it was my turn to do this one. I went up to the window, pounded extremely hard, and then bolted to a drainage ditch on the other side of the street. The guy stormed out with a shotgun and a high-powered flashlight, so we were basically shitting ourselves and then started shimmying along the drainage ditch towards a fence. Once we got to the fence, we made a run for it. The guy just screamed, "Get back here, you motherfuckers," as we ran. We hopped the fence and then continued running for what felt like a mile into the neighborhood over. We then found a small row of trees that we hid under for about an hour longer. Then out of nowhere, the guy drove up in a truck with another guy and started searching for us with flashlights. To this day, I honestly have no idea how they did not see us. We were wearing pretty bright clothing, and they were literally right on top of us. They left. Then we waited there another hour and then walked home to my friend's house. On Monday, when I went back to school, I took the bus home. I never paid my bus driver much attention before then, but I thought he looked familiar and could not place it, until I realized that he was the guy that I saw in the window. I kept glancing up at him to see if it was him, and he kept glancing at me. About half an hour passed until we came upon the turn into my neighborhood, and he passed it. Now this is weird because he had never missed it before in the 6 months I had been on his bus. One kid got off after another, and I started getting nervous. About an hour passed when there were just a few kids left on the bus, and he glanced up at me and said, "Sorry, my name. I guess I forgot to drop you off." I tried not to ride the bus after that. Story 19. I made the mistake of becoming friends with someone online. I thought something outrageous would never happen to me, but what do you know? It happened, and it really taught me not to be so naive. I become friends with this guy. We bonded over political beliefs. He asked my name and my age. I never gave him my last name, which I am thankful for, and I never told him where I lived either, but he started to come on to me. He kept saying very Sewell things towards me and creepy things. I usually just brushed it off and steered the conversation to something else. Then when he would not stop asking for my face, I called him out for being a little creepy. He then started to tell me things that I will not say on here, as they are extremely not right things to be said to someone underage, which he was not, I was. He then proceeded to say said things and send video clips of him walking over to the police station and cussing me out. Apparently, I was the pedophile for calling him out. Being the naive person I was, I believed he was going to report me. I started having a full-blown panic attack and started crying. I have never even stolen chapstick from the gas station. How am I going to explain to my parents that someone accused me of being a pedophile? He continued to send me videos and continued to cuss me out, along with bringing his girlfriend into the conversation to tell me how big of a penis he had and how that would not make him a creep. If anything, that made him more of one. He then told me he was going to hack into my phone and told me he was always in hotels because he is slowly but surely making his way towards me. I know this does not sound that extreme, but it was a really terrifying experience to someone who has never dealt with anything like this before. I have learned my lesson and do not share any information that is too personal online. Basically, not to trust anyone online. I did not believe those stories, and I regret not believing them. I thought that he really was hacking into my phone and coming to me, but after having a long conversation with a friend who knows someone who is advanced with tech stuff, that it was not possible, especially with such little information I gave him. I was naive to ever believe him, and I should have blocked him right when he started asking what I looked like. I regret not doing it sooner. It could have prevented me freaking out. But unfortunately, I learned my lesson the hard way. Story 20. This was 12 years ago. I was 14. My friend and I were quickly going through her house gathering clothes while my mom waited in the car for us outside. That night there was a school dance, and the theme was the red carpet. It was right around Halloween, so costumes were encouraged. And clever us decided we would go as hippies protesting the red carpet. We went through her mom and sister's room for hippie clothes, then went into my friend's room to try them on. I noticed a device that kind of looked like a cell phone sitting on her desk. "That is a really small cell phone," I said. "Oh, that is a digital recorder," she replied. "Here, let me show you how it works." She picked it up, held the button down, and, as a joke, said, "Who are you into the speaker?" She held the recorder out, but our smiles faded when the little red light started flashing. This, of course, meant that the recorder was picking up a voice. We play the recording back. It was a choking sound followed by a loud moan. It sounded like a woman. We turned to each other and screamed. We booked it back to my mom's car and were freaking the F out. We play it back to my mom, and I think she thought we were making it up because she did not seem to really care. We bring it to the school dance. I think the next night was our orchestra retreat. We were both in orchestra together, and we brought it there too and showed it to everyone. Lots of people did not believe us. A few did, her mom included, and were really creeped out. My friend went on to tell me that in the past, she had seen things in her house. One time she was sitting on the couch and the lights were on. She was facing a window, and since it was dark, she could see her reflection. She said she saw a man behind her, trying to peer over her shoulder to look at her face. When she looked over, nothing was there. In another instance, she saw a man in her yard walk by. He turned the corner and she looked out the window and he was gone. But her yard was fenced in. I think the fence was at least 6 feet, and there was no door or gate in the area he was walking towards. A few weeks later, she accidentally recorded over the creepy ghost moan. It is lost forever, but I will always remember that she and how unexplainable it was and still is. By the time we were seniors, my friend had moved in with her older boyfriend in a different city, still attended my school though occasionally, was a crusty punk, hardcore vegan, worked on a farm vegan kitchen, and so on. It seemed like she was really into the crusty punk lifestyle, and I kind of wonder if she was homeless. She seemed like a totally different person than the nice, innocent kid I met in 9th grade. Now I cannot find any trace of her. I see her mom and sister occasionally, around town and whatnot, but never her. Kind of sad. I felt like she got into the wrong crowd and is now estranged from them. Anyway, I guess it is not that exciting of a story. I actively try to avoid any ghostly situations because I am so goddamn scared of them. But with this particular one, there was no avoiding. Story 21. I was a teenager and a stoner. My friends and I would go out to this blocked-off bridge in the middle of the woods to get high. There were so many dead-end signs along the half-mile or so to the bridge that nobody went there unless they were looking for trouble. We climbed up the sides. It was a trestle, went underneath it, really just got familiar with the whole place in the few months we went there. Did it several times a week. It was fall, around Halloween 2011. One day we went out there near sunset and saw what appeared to be red pentagrams painted onto the concrete barriers blocking the bridge. As we got closer, we saw more pentagrams and other weird symbols all painted in the same red, on the ground, on the trestles, everywhere. Not spray paint, but something that dripped and smeared a lot. Figured it must have been edgy kids with a paint can. We went off to the side, fixing to go down into the creek just to see the extent of the vandalism when we saw a dead calf laying in the ditch weed with its throat slit. Blood was spread all along the blades of grass around it and dribbled up to the road. It also pooled quite a bit in the lower parts of the ground. Definitely dead, but fresh. We had been there in the last couple days and there was no smell even when we got closer. Got out of there fast, and the next time we went down, the whole half-mile of road leading to that bridge was completely blocked off. Story 22. When I was about 9 or 10, playing around with a couple of other kids in the apartment complex where we lived, we noticed a grown man, wearing respectable business attire, attempting to climb into a window into one of the buildings. A very narrow window on the second level. He was standing on top of a flimsy metal box thing that contained a fire extinguisher, and the window was still up over his head. How he got up to that point was anyone's guess, as it was a good 4 to 5 feet off the ground, with maybe 6 inches of surface area to stand on, and nothing else around to climb up on. We were so confused. Here was some grown-up, dressed like one of our teachers, basically breaking into an apartment building in broad daylight and totally oblivious to the 3 kids standing there watching and talking about him. This was Florida in summer. The guy was visibly perspiring, and we watched him struggle for a good 5 minutes before he finally did manage to hoist himself up and into the window, tumbling in and landing with a loud thud, followed by silence. I do not know why none of us thought to get someone. I guess the way he was dressed, and the fact that he did not seem to care about being seen, made us think he belonged there, even though it made absolutely no sense and was a totally bizarre event to witness. Story 23. So my girlfriend and I were about 20, maybe 19. We were at a friend's place that lived in an old high-rise apartment building. We had a few drinks, smoked a couple joints, and had some laughs. Well, I ended up buying some pot from him. It was pretty good. Smelled even through the baggie. This is the 90s, early 2000s. Well, we were leaving and got on the elevator. He was on floor 18, if I remember correctly. 2 guys got on the elevator 2 floors down from us. They could instantly smell the weed. I was drunk and stoned, so I cannot say I remember exactly what they looked like, but they were not the type to run into in a dark alley. So they make some comment about how cute my girlfriend was and that we smelled like a fun. Obviously pointing out the weed, we laughed and said we had a good time with our friends. So we get to the bottom of the elevator and my paranoia spidey sense is buzzing. We start walking to the right out of the elevator. They follow. I turn, act all stoned and say, "Oh man, we parked the other way." Well, they look at each other very confused and do not know what to do. So they slow down and start to turn around. So now I am like, F, that did not work. So I start to pat my pockets and say I forgot my keys. It is the 90s or whatever. I am wearing cargo shorts and they are baggy. Thank you, fashion from back then. Haha. So I hit the button and we go back up. Start pounding on my friend's door and he lets us in. We explain the best we can. He comprehends the best he can. And we look out the window and see a car drive by on the side we said we parked on. And then a few minutes later, we see the same car. Then 10 or 15 minutes later, we see the same car. Our best guess is they were looking for us. Well, an hour or so goes by and we are all beyond freaking out. But the intoxication and adrenaline have kicked in and we just wanted to go home. So we made a mad dash for it and got in our car and made it home safe. Pretty nerve-wracking at the time, though. Always be prepared for any situation, I tell myself. Story 24. I used to be the manager of a small liquor store. I finished work late one night and then walked a few hundred meters to the bus stop. This is at the bottom of a hill in the shopping area. By this time, all the other shops were closed and the area was deserted and silent as a grave. I was waiting for the bus at the stop, one of those see-through plexiglass ones, when I got the strangest feeling. I stood up, stretched, and turned around and someone's face ducked out of sight about 100 meters away, behind a fence. The stop was at the bottom of a small hill. You could see into the backyards of all the shops, and the fence lines receded up the hillside. He was about 4 or 5 fence lines away. I just stood there for a while thinking about it. I was not a big guy, but at 6 feet and 90 kilos, I was not that small either. Was this guy planning on robbing me or assaulting me or what? Instead of sitting down, I started pacing back and forth. I did not want to turn my back on this guy. Next thing I know, his head pops up for a minute again, but one fence line closer. He looks weird, kind of got a wild-eyed look on his face. He stares at me for a second or so and then bobs down again. I am standing there and starting to get a bit angry. I am not a particularly brave guy, but this was annoying me. Who the F does this guy think he is? What is he playing at? I start thinking about giving him a scare. What if I go around the front of the shops and try to come up behind him? As I was thinking this, the bus came, and I got on. I never saw him again. Still do not know if he was planning to rob me, assault me, or just playing games. Story 25. I have a few, but this one's fun. One night, my sister, mother, and I come in late at night and walk from our car to our back door. We live in a woodsy area and have a man-made pond on our backyard with a small, dim, decorative lamppost next to it. As we are walking to the door, my sister remarks that the pond looks creepy and that it seems like there is someone standing there watching us. We look and agree. There seemed to be an odd shadow right next to the lamppost, but it was dark and we just joke about it. I remember looking behind us as we walked in our home to see the shadow still there, seemingly facing our house. The following day, one of our neighbors alerts my mom that they saw someone running from our yard to the yard next to us that night and that they reported it. To this day, it gives me chills that most likely there was someone standing in our yard watching us walk into our house. We have had other instances of someone hanging around our house before, so we are lucky, but I am always paranoid when I'm home alone. Story 26. One time I was out and I saw a driver wave at me. I thought it must have been someone that knows me or just a kind stranger. I could not see the person, I just vaguely saw a wave. I like being friendly to strangers anyway, so I waved back and kept walking, and then I heard the car turn around and it stopped next to me. I did not really know what to do with that, so I stopped to, again, see if it was someone I knew. It was not. A guy that was maybe in his late 20s, maybe in his 30s, either way at least 10 years older than me, was in the front seat and started talking to me. Now he did not kidnap me, which I appreciate, but he asked for my name, and if he could get to know me, to which I kindly replied that I would rather not, and I went home. I made sure to wait before he was out of sight so he could not see where I lived. Could have been much worse, but it was kind of creepy. It is also not the only time someone significantly older than me flirted with me, which is also creepy. I think the scariest part of that is that he thought he should make a complete U-turn and start talking up a 15, 16-year-old also. I look a lot younger than I am. I looked about 14 in my opinion, because of a wave. Maybe he thought I was a prostitute, I do not know. Very weird and strange. Story 27. This may get buried, but it is one of many creepy things that happened in the first house I ever bought. My husband come home from work one day and his wedding ring was missing. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I did not even notice it was gone. Maybe it fell out when I was fixing the dryer." Anyway, we looked for days. Now my husband had been losing some weight and the ring was looser on him. He sat me down later and told me that he is worried that when he hung his hand out the window in the car, it might have fallen off on the drive to work. Believe it or not, I believed him. Money was tight, new baby and all, so he decided to not buy a new one. He said hoping that it shows up at the house. Fast forward 3 months, it is my 6-month-old and me at home. I am exhausted, so I decide to take a nap when she naps. I am half asleep and a large whitish figure walks over to me as I sleep. I did not feel fear at all, but it leans down and puts something on my finger and says he lies, then disappears. I wake up and there on my finger is my husband's wedding ring. I kid you not, I was freaking out. And boy did my husband freak out when he came home, and I had his ring. I told him what happened minus the he lies part, and he starts freaking out. He says there is no way some person found that ring and broke into our house to slip his ring on my finger. He decided then and there that our house was haunted, and lo and behold, something was going on with him, and a girl at work, and another girl before that at his other job, and then after he got fired from his current job, another girl after that. Of course, the last one was the last one for me, but creeped me out then and now. Story 28. Although this occurred 10 years ago, still makes me want to cry because of how scared my family was. My mom used to have the tendency to go to the laundromat like 1 hour before it closed, and since she would always take all the blankets and clothes, it took way more than an hour. So whatever she could not get done there, she would do at home, so she would stay up folding clothes late at night. And since I could never sleep well, I would stay in the living room until she was finished. My dad was already asleep, and I remember it was about 11 p.m., and we were watching a recording of Don Francisco's show, and out of nowhere the television and lights turned off. This did not scare us because it happened often. However, this time my mom had an uneasy feeling and decided to stop folding, and she came to lay down on the couch with me. Eventually, we fell asleep in the living room, and at about 1 a.m. we woke up in pitch black darkness, and the living room fan was on, but it was going faster than we had ever seen it go. It looked like it was about to fall off the ceiling. By the way, we went to sleep with the television and lights on. For some reason, my mom thought my dad was pranking us, so she cut a few pieces of tape and put it against his door, so if he was to open it, the tape would rip, and she knew he was going to prank us again. We decided to go sleep in my bedroom, which was across my dad's room and next to the restroom. We eventually fell asleep, but at about 3-4 a.m., she woke me up because she thought she heard the bathroom water running. When we opened the bedroom door, we could clearly hear the bath and sink water running. My mom looked at my dad's door, and the tapes were still on the door perfectly fine. My mom seemed so scared, and that made me even more scared, but she was too terrified to walk across to his room. We began yelling his name and calling his phone, but he is such a heavy sleeper that he kept sleeping. I was so confused because she seemed so terrified, and she is not the type to get scared. My mom finally decided to get out through the window and go into his, since they were right next to each other. When she finally woke him up, they came to get me, and he went to the restroom, and nothing was on. You could tell they were on because it was wet, and there were droplets on the faucet dripping down. We did not sleep for the rest of the night, and eventually when she was calmed down, she told me that when they first moved into this house, the faucets would turn on, and the restroom would be locked like if someone locked themselves in there and turned on the faucets. Never seen my mother so scared, it terrified me. I think this is the reason why I sleep with earphones now, to block out the scary things I could hear at night. Story 29. Many years ago at this point, my college was doing a production of Mephisto, which is a play about the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany, specifically how it affected the artists at the time. It is a decidedly anti-Nazi play written by an artist who fled Germany during that time. I was doing sound design for the show, and the director wanted one of the cues to be the Nazi national anthem. I go on the internet looking for a downloadable version and only click on links that seem safe. Sites that are dedicated to historical preservation, they all have disclaimers saying things like, look, we only have this because it was a song that happened and has great historical weight. We do not condone Nazis. About a week or so later, as I am getting gas at the gas station right near my house, I am approached by someone who said their sister got arrested in the nearby city. I live in the suburbs and they need a ride to the local metro stop. Could I give them a ride? I am a friendly enough person. I say sure. The entire conversation for the ride was very leading, saying casually racist things about the demographics of the local high schools, how now they need to have increased security because of the blacks and Latinos bringing weapons to school, how the area used to be so much nicer, did it not? Nothing overtly super racist, no N-words or obvious slurs, but it seemed obvious he was waiting for me to agree with him. I never said anything committal, just hms and hus. I knew I was not going to convince this guy that racism is wrong in a 5-minute car ride, and I was not about to get into a heated argument with a stranger while we were both in the confined space of my car. We got to the metro stop, and that was the end of it. But I am 95% sure he was a member of the KKK or a neo-Nazi who was trying to recruit me. The timing was too coincidental. The story about his sister was a little too forced and did not quite add up. The conversation a little too leading. Maybe it was just coincidence, but my gut says it was not, which would mean that whatever group he was a part of was able to pinpoint my location in real life after looking that stuff up, and that is terrifying. Story 30. Once when I was sleeping over at a friend's house, I was laying in bed asleep And I had a dream. It was me and all my friends playing volleyball or dodgeball. And then the other team, a group of just like random kids I did not know, came over and started telling me to shoot the door down, basically chanting it over and over. Then it changed and I heard what was basically a voice telling me it was okay and everything was fine and that I just need to relax and let go, and how everything would be okay if I let go and let it take me. The voice was light and somewhat feminine, and at first I was fine with it. Everything seemed okay, and I was relaxing, and it kept assuring me everything was fine, and it was supposed to feel like this. But I felt the feeling in my fingertips and feet start slowly going numb, moving up my arms and legs. I started to freak out, and the voice turned like sickly sweet, and I was mentally like, no, this is not okay, this is mine. And I felt all the feeling basically slam back into my body at once, and it hurt a lot. And then I was able to open my eyes. No one aside from the younger brother asleep in the bed beneath mine was in the room. I went to the living room and woke my friend up for a second and played on the computer to relax for a while. Really disturbing experience. I remember more details but spared some of them for the sake of having to type out so much Story 31. Currently dealing with this now. There is a man that lives in the building my boyfriend and I do, who from the first day we moved in has given us both bad vibes. The day we were moving in, my boyfriend and his cousin has taken up the elevator to the top floor to drop stuff off. I was the only one left downstairs and was just mindlessly bringing in things to the lobby, waiting for the elevator to come back down. These men are sitting on the benches in the lobby and just all talking. Two of them did not seem weird at all, but one could not stop staring at me. Every move I did, trying to talk to me each time I came in, I would respond just small things to be polite and not ignore him, but did not indulge because he looked like he was looking into my soul. He eventually went all the way to the top floor to get the elevator for me, even which is super nice but super unnecessary since we had only one elevator booked. But I said thank you and told him he did not need to. Nothing more happened from there that day. Flash forward a couple weeks and I finally see him again. I took the elevator down to the lobby too. I believe my mom was there dropping something off, so I ran out to her car and on the way back to the door, he saw me as he was in the lobby and sprinted to the door to open it for me. My hands were completely free, and I said, thank you. He then got in the elevator with me and pressed the floor before mine. So I hoped he would just be getting off and that would be it. I was wrong. He is staring at me. I can see it in the side of my view, and he then says, I bet no one has ever told you that you are a beautiful redhead. And I responded, my boyfriend does every day. He said he is a very lucky guy. I ignored it. After his floor comes and the door opens, he says, I will just take it up with you. Why is he doing this? I do not speak a word. He then says, as I am getting off when my floor arrives, I have tools if you ever want to come by my apartment. What does that even mean? I ignore everything and run to my boyfriend and literally break down to him. It has been about a month since that, and I did not see him unless I was with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend would pretty much just stand in front of me because he knows how bad it makes me feel. He has not said anything weird or disgusting when my boyfriend is around. But my boyfriend just left this weekend to go to his grandma's, and I was just doing laundry as I would, and I see him staring through the laundry room's door window at me. He stands there for a few minutes, and I can just literally see it. I finally turn and look at him, so he opens the door and comes in. He tries to buy a pop from the vending machine while trying to tell me they raised the price, so he had to come back. I threw all my laundry in the washer and got the heck out of there since it would be a half an hour until I would have to go back down. I go back down a half an hour later, and who is standing in there just waiting? Him. He is just in there. He runs over to open the door for me, and I just say thanks. I said it so bitter that it did not sound at all real. He says so close to me. Anything for a pretty girl. I was shocked and did not have time to gather my thoughts of what just was said to me before he left. The next time I see him, I will be threatening the police on him because I cannot stand these comments, and I want him to stay away from me. I am not going to let it continue, and if he does make a comment towards me or bothers me, I will not hesitate to call the police.